Warning, there are full spoilers ahead for the entirety of Last of Us Part 2, the entire game. If you watch this video and you don't want to get spoiled for the entire game, just don't watch it. Just don't watch the video. You've been warned. I've recently had the pleasure of playing both The Last of Us and The Last of Us Part 2 for the first time, and I found them to be spectacular from both a gameplay and story perspective, with the gameplay and story both being a little bit better in Part 2, in my opinion. Before this, my only experience with The Last of Us was watching Season 1 of the TV show adaptation, and before that, I recall quite well when The Last of Us Part 2 came out and got caught up in the culture war at the time. And I understand why the game got caught up in the culture war. The main character in the game is a lesbian woman, the second protagonist is a straight woman who is absolutely jacked, and there's even a trans kid. That's like prime culture war material. But getting caught up in the culture war left a bad impression of the game in the minds of millions of not just gamers, but people. Real people. Gamers aren't people. At the time, I was not at all interested in story-driven games. I never had a PlayStation growing up, so I was just disconnected from other gamers in that way. My only information about the game was the info that I got from other people on the internet at the time, and man was it negative. My opinion on the game, which keep in mind is a game from a franchise I'd literally never heard of before it became a culture war issue, was extremely negative. I basically thought the game was dog shit. It had to be. All my favorite cultural commentators on YouTube were telling me that it was terrible. This Neil Cuckman guy really seemed like a big old moron. I recall there being one video that came out in the midst of all the chaos that kind of broke through the noise, and it really pushed back against that overwhelming narrative surrounding the game at the time. And that video was actually Donkey's review of the game. His review of the game was extremely positive. He loved the game from a gameplay perspective, but critically, he was very positive on the story of the game as well, which was really what the hate was all about. I remember watching his video and being surprised and confused to see an actual positive take on the game from someone whose opinion I seriously respected and valued. I was in an echo chamber at the time, and finally a different opinion had broken through. You know what I thought? Well, I guess he must be wrong about this one. Man, I really want to blame me just being a dumb teenager at the time, but I was 22 when the game came out. I guess I'm just dumb, period. So what did the main criticism of the game really boil down to at the time of release? I googled this because I had some thoughts on what I remember the criticism being, and I swear this comment on a thread from a year ago on the subreddit Indian Gaming summarized it perfectly. Shoutouts to Lois Must Die 666. Let's break it down by his points. Number 1, people were parasocially attached to Joel. I can't really speak to this one with any certainty as, like I mentioned, I never played the original Last of Us before all the controversy with Part 2 came out, but from what I can tell, Joel was probably one of the most popular characters in gaming, and it's easy to tell why. Joel resonates really well with gamers. He's a macho guy with a tragic history that he wants to forget, who over the course of the original game learns to accept his past and finds a family in Ellie. His choice to save Ellie at the end of the first game is a controversial but respectable decision. In all honesty, he's the epitome of cool while also being an emotionally relatable character that many people identify with deeply. It makes sense. So seeing this character who you've grown so attached to and find so relatable get murdered in a slow, brutal way, well, that's like seeing it happen to a family member in a way. Of course people took it really hard. Point number 2. The majority of the storyline was extremely depressing. Compared to Part 2, the story of the first game is fucking rainbows and daisies. The first game is like a stroll in the park, like a kiss on the beach, like a quiet night out in the city. Part 2 is a revenge story, while Part 1 is a redemption story. You guys know John Wick? You know how the entire impetus behind the movie is his wife dying and leaving him a puppy to keep him company, and then some gangsters kill the dog? Yeah, revenge stories tend to be depressing. You usually don't go on a whole murder spree because someone stepped on your lawn or took away your lollipop. The game guts you at every corner and at every chance it gets. You watch Joel get beaten to death. You watch Jesse get shot in the face. You see Tommy get shot in the back. I thought he was dead when that happened. He wasn't, but I thought he was. Then when you play as Abby, you start getting to know her and her friends who you killed as Ellie, so you start to feel a little bit bad about it even though the murders felt so good at the time. It's almost like the game is trying to make a point about cycles of violence. Point number 3. Abby equals manly woman who killed my favorite character, and also, point number 4, you're forced to play as the killer of the fave character. Now we're getting into the real meat and potatoes of what people really don't like about this game, and that is Abby. Abby is not supposed to be a character that is easily liked. Halfway through the game, when it all resets back to day 1 and you start playing as Abby, I was a little pissed. I knew what was about to happen. The game was about to try to get me to like Abby, but screw this chick, man. She killed Joel. Abby is an asshole. Abby is selfish. Abby has sex with Owen, even though Owen has an extremely pregnant partner who Abby is friends with. Abby is a ruthless killer. Abby tortured and murdered Joel. But Abby's also kind. She goes back to save the kids who saved her life, even though, I mean, she really shouldn't have. It seemed like it was a bad idea. When Lev runs off to this island to go and find his mother, Abby chases after him, even though it's almost certainly a suicide mission. Abby is forgiving. Twice she lets Ellie live, even though it's a terrible idea, because deep down, she does have a moral code, and she believes in forgiveness. Even though she participated in the cycle of violence when she seeked out Joel to murder him, she contained her killing to just Joel. You really don't want to like Abby. Everything makes you want to hate her with all your heart, but you can't help but feel her winning you over as you play, and all of that despite her shortcomings as a person. Underneath it all, she is a good person at heart, and sometimes good people can do terrible things. It's almost like the game is trying to make a point about people not being purely good or purely evil and showing you that your opinion of a person or event will be entirely dictated by the facts which you personally are aware of and the life circumstances that you found yourself in. Point number 5. Didn't give players the choice to either kill Abby or let Abby go in the end, making the entire playthrough useless for most. So this one I don't entirely get, and I'm curious if people who were tuned into this whole controversy at the time would agree that this was a point that people were making, because I don't remember it being a criticism. If this one is a real issue people had with the game, I don't think I agree with this take at all. Like, for one thing, this is not a choices matter game. You don't make any decisions as a player in this game about the story. The story is the story, and it happens no matter what you think about it for the entire game, so I don't get why you would get the choice to kill or not kill Abby at the end. Like, that doesn't make any sense. Maybe if at the end of the first game you got the choice to either kill or not kill the Doctor, that would make sense from a dramatic irony perspective. This game obviously taking place in the world where Joel does choose to kill the Doctor, but like, you don't even get the choice. You just have to kill the Doctor. I just don't get why people would think that a game that doesn't give you any sort of story affecting choices through the entire game would suddenly let you make the most important decision of the entire game just at the very end. And on to the final point on this comment. Point number 6. Gay. The game had gay main characters. I honestly think this is what it mainly boils down to. Not entirely, but mainly. Having gay characters got it labeled as woke, and there was a real righteous anger towards that kind of stuff in the gaming community then, and still now, but it was stronger then. I want to clarify that there is 100% a group of people out there who did not like Last of Us Part 2 from a good faith standpoint. There are people who felt the story genuinely went in a direction that was too different from the original game as far as tone goes, or people who think seeing one of your favorite characters get beaten to death by a golf club is gratuitous and cruel to fans. There's absolutely nothing wrong with thinking that. These people are arguing not based on biases that they have regarding the sexuality of characters within the game, but on the merits of the story itself. And I have no arguments or qualms with these people because art is ultimately subjective, and their take is just as valid as my take is. And to play the devil's advocate even, the quote-unquote woke stuff in the game could potentially go too far. I don't think it does, but if they had made, I don't know, Joel revealed to be gay, and like had Ellie and Abby decide to become lesbian lovers at the end, I'd be like, okay, yeah, that's a bit gratuitous. Obviously that's an extreme example, but you know, that's the point. But the majority of the woke criticisms of the game are not coming from that place, because the reality is that Ellie's sexuality is not really a core element of the story of the game. The only way it affects the game in any way is the argument Ellie has with Joel because some old guy calls her a dyke at the beginning. And like, honestly, swap that whole argument with anything and it wouldn't have made a difference. The main point there is that Joel stands up for Ellie and that makes Ellie upset and they have an argument. Like, the guy could have called her fat for all that it matters. It truly doesn't actually affect anything about the story. Dina could have been a dude. Like, it doesn't affect anything. Then the whole thing with Lev getting ousted from his community for being trans, right? Like that, you could have swapped that with something else. Like, it's not something that affects the story, it's just kind of in the story, and it's not like a lot of attention is brought to it, you know? It's just kind of there. Right-wing gamers are a very reactionary group of people. As much as they were the types to quote-unquote own the libs and call people snowflakes, they're a very easy group of people to trigger themselves. There was a small but extremely vocal minority of people within the gaming community who turned their attack beams onto The Last of Us Part 2, and I think the savvier amongst them were able to spread the idea that the game sucked mainly because of the story, but also a little bit because of the woke stuff in the game. The goal was really to get people annoyed and thinking that the woke stuff was going too far, but sneaking that into a greater message about the game itself not being very good. And it's a shame because it worked on me, dude. I never considered playing the game because I was a victim of their propaganda machine and considered this game something I really never needed to play. But The Last of Us as a series is incredible. The visuals are stunning, and the story rivals that of Hollywood movies. Hell, it beats like 95% of the movies coming out nowadays. Each game has a very specific idea it wants to get across, and it beats and batters that point into you. The Last of Us Part 2 is a game about loss, and about cycles of violence. As I was playing the game and getting to know Abby, I kept finding myself thinking like, man, she and Ellie would actually like each other in some other alternate timeline where they met under different circumstances. They'd get along, they'd be friends. These two people are so much like each other, but thanks to fate, they're mortal enemies. Abby loses her dad thanks to Joel's Salt Lake rampage, and goes to get revenge by killing Joel, which means Ellie has now lost her dad, so she goes to get revenge by killing Abby, only she never actually finds Abby, but she does find and kill a lot of her closest friends, so Abby goes to get revenge by killing Ellie, but gets stopped by Lev, but not before killing one of Ellie's close friends. So now Ellie can't let it just go and goes back out after Abby. You get the picture. The message is this: violence begets violence. Violence is not an answer, it only causes further violence. The only way to break a cycle of violence is through forgiveness. Now, these little platitudes are easy to say and easy to accept as just a truism, you know, the idea that forgiveness is the answer, but the game makes you see it in action in a way that feels natural. By the end of the game, you just want Ellie to let it go. Joel is dead, and killing Abby isn't gonna change that. You've already taken your revenge and killed all of the people she's ever cared about. She goes through hell and back. She has paid for what she's done. And honestly, you don't want to see Abby killed. You grow a fondness for her and her rough edges. It absolutely gutted me when I saw her at the end of the game, up on that pillar, being killed through exposure and starvation. She looked like a different person, and not at all like the Abby that I had gotten to know. Every single punch that Ellie threw during their final fight felt like I was punching myself. And ultimately, when Ellie chooses to let Abby go, I felt so much relief come over me. Ellie realized she was in the cycle of violence. If Ellie killed Abby, it would have felt like an end to the conflict, but Lev was there, and maybe would come after Ellie as revenge for killing Abby, keeping that cycle of violence alive. Ellie's decision represents her acceptance of Joel's death, and it represents her growth, that she's ready to live the life that Joel fought to give her. It represents her forgiveness of Joel for what he did. Playing The Last of Us Part 2 was an incredible experience that I would not have had if I had accepted the idea sold to me that it's not worth playing because it's too quote-unquote woke. It's a pretty asinine statement because it's not at all what the game is about, as I've just gone through. Some people, unfortunately, will never be able to get past the main character being a lesbian and one of the other characters being trans, and that's fine. It's just their loss. The Last of Us Part 2 is one of the greatest games and one of the richest stories of all time, and it never deserved the hate. Thank you for watching.